And welcome into week two of the Pigskin Picks here on 302 Sports. Our guest this week from the Delaware football high school football pod, John Buzby, one half of the podcast. John, welcome into our show.
Thank you very much. Glad to be on it. Looking forward to talking about week two. I think we're in, right?
Yes, we are. Our Pigskin Picks are brought by Compete Event Management. Compete Event Management runs wrestling tournaments throughout the state and even have an apparel line that can be personalized for your tournament. Not looking to run an event, but looking for competition? Compete events are where you want to be. They are well run and organized. Their next upcoming event is the Primal Showdown, September 21st at St. George's Votech in Middletown. John, this week's picks are kind of geared for you. A lot of upstate games
Yeah,
uh,
I noticed that. Yeah.
on the slate. A lot of the
Yep.
downstate teams are playing out of state, it seemed like. So let's get started, Trey. Delcastle and Dickinson.
Yeah, district play begins in Class A this week. Delcastle's coming in this game with a loss to Academy Park from Pennsylvania. So kind of all we know is that Delcastle didn't score in that game, and we don't know a whole lot about their opponents. Dickinson's 0-2 with one of those losses being to a tough Tower Hill team. It's a tough one to make here. I'm going to go Dickinson at home to get a win in there in the column.
John.
Well, as Trey said, it's tough to know a lot about the Del Castle team that played an out-of-state team. We run into those problems here early on, especially Dickinson 0-2. They lost to Tower Hill pretty bad, and they lost to St. Andrews pretty bad as well. Tower Hill, of course, a Class 2A team, but Del Castle hasn't scored, and Dickinson's only scored 6 points last week, and so Jafari Payne had two of those three touchdowns. You know what? I kind of looked at this. This time of the year, sometimes cramping comes into the play, and so I looked at these two rosters. And Dickinson only has 29 players on its roster. Del Castle has 39, a little more depth. I couldn't come up with another reason to pick us one of these two teams. And so I'm going with the depth here in week number two on what could be a hot and maybe muggy day. Not sure. So I'm going with Del Castle.
It's a 6 o'clock kickoff at Dickinson. First class district Class A games, as Trey said. Delcastle, they're dropping down from Double A. Give me Delcastle on this one. It was a tough pick between these two teams, but I'm going with Delcastle. Trey, Newark and Brandywine.
Yeah, Newark got a big win over Air DuPont in their Class A debut. William Teal was involved in three touchdowns, two on the ground and another one through the air. The Yellow Jacks have a small roster, which could be a problem late in games, kind of like how you're talking about in the previous pick with cramp at the beginning of the years and small rosters. Jasir Green is a weapon for Brandywine, who just went toe to toe with 2A Laurel last week. He had a touchdown, 75 yards rushing, 48 yards receiving, and he had 7 tackles on defense. I like what I saw out of Brandywine last week, so I'm gonna go Brandywine at home.
John, your area, Newark, go ahead up to Brandywine.
Yeah, tough to tell. Newark, solid win, shutout win over AI DuPont. AI DuPont's goal this year is to get to game 10 in the season. And the coach has been very clear about that. And so not putting a whole lot of stock in that lopsided win there. Agree with Trey. Very impressed with Brandywine. They beat a 2A Mount team. Now, this is a Mount team that's may not be very good because now they're 0-2, have not scored yet either. So tough to that, but it did impress me just like it did with Trey in that battle of the bone last week with Laurel. Jasir Green had 3 rushing touchdowns, 75 yards, and the kicker Ian Cleghorn hit field goals of 33 and 29 yards, so that was impressive as well. This game could come down to an extra point or a field goal, and because of that, I'm going to go with Brandywine and Cleghorn's leg.
Throwback maybe to the 90s when this was once a big Blue Hen Conference game, and now we find both teams in single A. Newark, they got off to that good start last week, beating Ad upon 32-0. This week, they head to the other side of Wilmington for a 6 o'clock kickoff. What is scary about Brandywine is they're relatively young and talented.
Yeah.
The Yellow Jackets, they're dropping from double A to single A, which may give them an advantage, but the Bulldogs are my early pick to win a state title, so I'm sticking with them here. Brandywine wins. Let's move on to Saturday game, 11 a.m. St. Elizabeth and Wilmington Charter.
Yeah, this is a game that in November where we can look back on and say it was key to one of these two teams. Charter doesn't want to start 0-2. The Vikings, on the other hand, are 1-1, and even though this is a road game, they've yet to leave the city of Wilmington, which I imagine most athletic directors like. I know transportation costs are through the roof these days. So, but back on topic, I think I like Charter at home. I think they find a way to get a win in the column here.
Little inner city battle here, John. Who do you have?
Well, St. E's beat FSMA, and then FSMA, First State Military Academy, I'm talking about, beat Wilmington Charter. I don't always rely on if A beats B and B beats C, then A is going to beat C. But I am going to do that here. I'm going to go with St. Elizabeth. Their running back, only a sophomore, Isaiah Coleman's got 4 touchdowns this season already. So I like St. E's in this one.
You could probably attest, John, if traffic's good, maybe a 5-minute drive between these two schools. Yet,
Maybe.
yet it really doesn't have that rivalry feel.
Mm-mm.
I think St. Elizabeth is one of those teams is going to get significantly better as the season goes on, and maybe surprise some teams late in the year, but no surprise for me here. St. Elizabeth is going to get the win. Let's move downstate, 6 o'clock kickoff on Friday. Milford versus Indian River down in Dagsboro.
Yeah, this could be the highest score game of the weekend. Both teams are averaging 30 points per game. And last week, both teams allowed multiple touchdowns against single A opponents. Indian River is on an 11-game winning streak. I like them at home to get to 12 games.
John, a little downstate flavor for you.
Yeah, Indian River, 2-0, blew out Class 2A Odessa. And Odessa had to rally to beat Newark Charter. So, again, questioning, is Odessa one of the better 2A teams? Can't really judge yet, but still Indian River beat them solidly. And then they were heading into the fourth quarter against Seaford and hung on for the win, significantly. And then they had to hang on for the win. This is Indian River I'm still talking about. So Milford 0-1, 2-point loss to Conrad. That was a tough loss for Rod Melstead's debut. I like Indian River to continue on the roll. I think they're playing with a lot of confidence, and it's going to be the third straight home game for them before they go on the road. And so Indian River is playing like a 2A playoff team right now, is my opinion. And so I'm going with the Indians.
After winning Class A state title last year, they move up to Double A. Indian River they've just kept rolling. Tonight, or this tomorrow night, they play an old Henny South foe in Milford, who lost on the last play of the game last week to Single A Conrad. As these two teams resume play after a few years off, I expect a classic Indian River Milford battle, but I think the Indians have too many arrows in their quiver for the Bucks. Indian River rolls to 3-0 on Friday night. Saturday, 2 o'clock, Delmar at Wilmington Friends. Trey.
Yeah, somebody gets their first win on Saturday. And it seems weird saying that between these two highly successful programs. Delmar's backs are against the wall if they go 0-3, and if they go 0-3 and they've yet to play any of the competitive Class 2A and District 3. The Quakers held Woodbridge to a single touchdown that came in the second quarter, and Delmar struggled to score this year with only 3 touchdowns in the season. I kind of lean towards Wilmington Friends getting it done with their defense. I'm gonna go Friends at home.
John, the Quakers have a cornered Wildcat right now.
Delmar, that opening score against DMA in that first round, I forget what they lost by, but it was lopsided, and that shocked me. That was the most shocking score for me back in week 0. I don't know how good Parkside is, and so the Friends at tough 1-point loss to Woodbridge last week. As has already been said, neither one of these teams wants to start out 0-2 in 2A before they even get to their district games. Otherwise, they might be putting themselves in a situation where they've got to win their district to get into the playoffs. This is about the farthest bus ride anybody has to take this year from Delmar up to Wilmington Friends. And I don't care what time of day the game is. It's a Saturday morning. It's a long ride, probably a solid hour and 45 minutes by school bus to get up there. Quakers are going to have a normal Saturday morning because they always play on Saturday. It's completely normal for them. Not the case for Delmar. I like Wilmington Friends in this matchup.
Yeah, the Quakers, they were less than a yard away from leaving Sussex County with an upset win over Woodbridge last Friday night.
37 seconds to go.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure Delmar has found an identity, having replaced so much talent from last year's Class AA District 3 championship team. Weather should be perfect for September football, but the Wildcats long trip, as you said, John, up and then playing on that unusual Saturday mid-afternoon game. I think it has Wilmington Friends getting the win, and I like to put this game on the slate because I get to say Alapocus, here. So I'm taking Wilmington Friends to win at home. 2 o'clock also Saturday, St. Mark's at Archmere. Trey?
Yeah, St. Mark's is going to have to jump out on Archmere this week like they did with St. George's last week. But this time they got to hold it in the second half, and the road doesn't get any easier for the Spartans as they head into this game with the Hawks at 0-2. Archmere an impressive victory over St. Elizabeth's last week. This is a tough one. St. Mark's showed they can score on a tough St. George's team. I'm going to lean into they learned from some mistakes last week, and St. Mark's finds a way to win.
John, Archmere and St. Mark's.
It was an impressive win point wise for Archmere. I agree with you, Trey, but they were playing down to a Class 1 team, St. Elizabeth. So I take that into a little bit, of an opinion there. St. Mark's, on the other hand, has played 2 3A teams, despite now playing back in 2A, where they started when this class system was first put together. So they're more battle tested. St. Mark's is playing with kind of a thing in their heart for athletic director and baseball coach Matt Smith, who passed away after a long battle of cancer. His funeral is not till the following week after this game. So, they're playing for Smitty is what they're doing. And I like the fact that St. Mark's has been battle tested. This will be Archmere's first battle. For that reason, I'm going to go with St. Mark's.
This game has upset written all over it because it appears too easy to pick with a lot of variables. Archmere always seems to find a way to win this game. They've won 6 of the last 7. But the Spartans put a scare into St. George's last week in the graveyard. On the road against the Hawks, I think they're going to make it 7 out of 8. I find Archmere they're just going to find a way and get the win here. As you said, John, an emotional game, but sometimes does that emotion carry into late in the game? We'll find out Saturday afternoon. So one of our first 2 broadcasts of the week, Glenn Frazier will have this game. Glenn Frazier, I think Nick Alessandrini will be on the call. Friday night, 7 o'clock, St. George's versus Caravel. Trey.
Yeah, big test for both these teams. Caravel quarterback Matt Rice has added a passing game to an already established ground game. I think St. George is going to want to take long drives in this game and keep the Caravel offense off the field as much as possible. Don't know that they can do that, though. I like Caravel at home.
John, right around the corner from you.
Yeah, right down the street. Caravel, first game in 3A. Let me tell you guys, if they stay healthy, they're a 3A playoff team, no doubt about it. Josh Roy, 200-plus yards and 3 touchdowns at Red Lion. He's a legit running back. I went and saw one of their scrimmages, and Trey, Matt Rice does. He looks like a seasoned veteran quarterback. He reminds me, and you'll appreciate this, Benny, of how Rich Gannon played quarterback.
Right.
And he is, they in the scrimmage I watched, which was against Cape, they threw as much as they passed. And Matt Rice was throwing exactly as he should. He was throwing the ball away when he should. He looked like he was a passing quarterback his whole career, which hasn't been the case. St. George's 2 solid wins against William Penn. They had to come back against St. Mark to pick that up. But William Penn might not be a playoff team, and we still don't know about St. Mark's. We'll find out. And obviously they're a 2A team as well. So it's the home opener for Caravel. They'll have a big crowd there. 2 well-respected coaches, John Reed, who played at Caravel. He won their first state championship as a center on that team, has now led them to a couple state championships. And, of course, John Wilson at St. George's. Hard to pick. This was the hardest game for me to pick. I like Caravel at home in their first ever 3A game.
It's probably the matchup of the weekend. The Hawks, they've established themselves as a contender in 3A. Over the past few years, they take on a Caravel team. They've been the bully of AA the past 2 seasons, and now they make this move up. St. George's, they play that slow, methodical type of game that may help them shorten the game. But Josh Roy, he's going to find the end zone, and he tends to do it quickly. The Bucks have juiced up their offense, as you talked about with Matt Rice. I think that gets them to 2-0 in the win. I'm taking Caravel. Our downstate Friday night game of the week, Woodbridge at Sussex Central. Myself and Jim Tack will have the call in this game. Trey?
Yeah, it doesn't get much more Sussex County than Woodbridge and Sussex Central game. Woodbridge has a couple good backs in Hayes and Eli, but they will go up against a much larger and deeper Sussex Central team. The key in this game is the number of guys Woodbridge will have that don't leave the field on Friday night. We kind of hinted at a couple other games. There's some small teams on this slate as in depth. It's going to be a problem for Woodbridge. Central, I feel about Central at home. pretty much pick them every time at home, unless obviously it's sees Rodney. But I like Central at home here, so here we go.
And we'll have that CR Central game down the road later on this year, Trey. So,
Great.
John, I was at both practices this week. Both teams, loosey goosey, just ready to play some football. Who do you have?
Well, Woodbridge is going to have to score more than 7 points to beat Sussex Central. There's no doubt about that. Woodbridge obviously can play defense. I summarize this very simple. It's a Class 3A playoff team against what I think is going to be a Class 2A playoff team. And when two teams like that in separate classes face off against each other, typically the team from the higher class wins it. I'm going with Sussex Central, especially because they're at home there in the castle.
Right. And this was 24-14 after 3 quarters last year before the size and depth of Sussex Central took over. This is a much less experienced Golden Knights team facing a talented Woodbridge squad. Woodbridge, very not small on the line, but very young on the line this year. This game, it's ripe for an upset as well, but I know how Central rolls in the castle. Give me Sussex Central to win this game. So, interesting slate, if anything. John, you talked about the tough game. What's the most interesting game for you on the slate this week?
Well, looking back at him, to me, the St. George's Caravel game is interesting, as well as the toughest to pick, because St. George's had, the opening win against William Penn. That if you ask anybody right now, William Penn people would think they're going to be on the outside looking in come playoff team. St. Mark's is a 2A team. St. George had to struggle to get back. So I think a win by St. George's will put them in my own. What Marty and I do is we have our top four, our next four, and then the other ones looking in. And St. George's will be, for me, a solid team in that middle group if they beat Caravel. I think Caravel, and I said this on the podcast at the beginning of the season, I have them starting in that first team out of that top four. And so a win for Caravel to me is going to make me think that I'm right about that, where a loss might move them down further in that middle group. I still think they're going to be a playoff team, even if they lose to St. George's. So I think to me that's going to tell me the most about these two things. A second one will be Delmar and Wilmington Friends. If that game's lopsided, that's going to tell you a lot about one of those two teams, I think.
Right.
In particular, Delmar. If they get beat handily by Wilmington Friends, you almost have to wonder if Delmar is going to make the playoffs. So those are the two.
Trey, who you got? What game piques your interest the most?
You talked about that St. Mark's Archmere. St. Mark's desperately needs a win, but like you said, the last 7-8 years, Archmere's just had their number. That game intrigues me, and obviously Delmar Wilmington Friends. We've covered that many years. You've had that as your game. It's always a great game.
Scrapple game.
Yes, yeah, and it's two teams that are struggling, which typically they're undefeated when they're playing each other. So that's intriguing as well.
I'm going to go off the beaten track. Probably a game that's not going to get a lot of attention. Milford Indian River. Both teams are scoring a lot of points. Both teams are allowing a lot of points. Milford's coming off that, as you said, John, that first loss in the Milstead era in a close game, got beat. I think that was on the last play of the game. Yep. Indian River last year, I've talked about this before. They allow teams to hang around. One of these days it's going to get them. I got Indian River to win, but this could be an interesting game if both teams don't start playing some defense. So that's the game. Off the beaten track, but I think that's the game that if I wasn't doing the Sussex Central game, I would be down there. Other than they have horrible internet in Dagsboro, so it's tough to do a game down there. So, folks, you can watch the Delaware High School football pod with John and Marty. You can watch it and you can listen to it. John, tell us how you can listen to that.
We're on YouTube, and we are on the podcasts wherever you listen to your podcasts normally. You'll be able to get our podcast. It's the Delaware High School Football Pod. We usually try to drop it by noon on Sundays. If it's not going to drop by then for any of a variety of reasons, we always let people know on our social media channels. So appreciate people tuning in.
Yeah, check those guys out on Sunday, folks. They'll recap some games and talk about the next week and have a whole bunch of awards they like to hand out. come Sunday. So, guys, thanks a lot. And again, brought to you by Compete Event Management. Their next event, the Primal Showdown at St. George's on September 21st. Guys, have a good night, and we'll see everybody at kickoff.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.